Hello everyone and welcome to the Unanswered Questions True Crime Podcast.
I have spent hours and hours investigating this.
He basically told her that people have been killed. Journalists, independent investigators, people like that disappeared. It frightened her to the bone.
There's more to the story than meets the eye.
There were rumors of torture and homicide and sexual abuse, all sorts of egregious, horrendous crimes.
He was polygraphed 3 times. Each of those 3 showed evasions.
His resumes were a skeleton of truth.
He was mad at the world, and particularly mad at the government.
The study that he commissioned had described a fictional terrorist attack.
If people have died over this, it means you're getting close to the truth.
You don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to say, what the fuck?
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Money Podcast Unanswered Questions, where every week we will endeavour to discuss a mysterious unsolved case that has many lingering unanswered questions. So I hope you enjoy, and as always leave me some feedback on what you think about the show and rate it as well. Now on to the show. This week we'll be talking about the death of Gareth Williams. Gareth Wyn Williams, born the 26th of December 1978 and died on the 16th of August 2010, was a Welsh mathematician and junior analyst for GCHQ on secondment to the Secret Intelligence Service, SIS or MI6, who was found dead in suspicious circumstances in Pimlico, London on the 23rd of August 2010 at a flat used to house security services staff. The inquest found that his death was unnatural and likely to have been criminally mediated. A subsequent Metropolitan Police investigation concluded that Williams' death was probably an accident, which I don't believe at all. 2 senior British police sources have said some of Williams' work concerned Russia, and one confirmed reports that he had been helping the US National Security Agency, NSA, trace international money laundering routes that are used by organised crime groups, including Moscow-based mafia cells. Now we get into the background of this case. Originally from Valley Anglesey, Wales, Williams, who spoke Welsh as a first language, began studying mathematics part-time at Bangor University while still attending a secondary school, and I am going to butcher this name, Ysgol Uwchad Bodydurn, and graduated with a first-class degree at age 17. After gaining a PhD at the University of Manchester, he dropped out from a subsequent postgraduate course at St Catherine's College, Cambridge, and took up employment with GCHQ in Cheltenham in 2001, renting a room for nearly a decade in Prestbury, Gloucestershire. Reportedly an intensely private man and a keen cyclist, Williams was due to return to Cheltenham at the beginning of September 2010, following his annual leave. Now we get into his death. Police visited Williams' home during the afternoon of Monday the 23rd of August 2010 as a welfare check after colleagues noted he'd been out of contact for several days. His naked, decomposing remains were found in the bath of the main bedroom's ensuite bathroom inside a red sports bag that was padlocked from the outside, with the keys inside the bag. The local police had gained entry into the top floor flat at 36 Eldony Street, Pimlico at around 1648. On examination of the bag, the premises was declared a crime scene. His family alleged that crucial DNA was interfered with and that fingerprints left at the scene were removed as part of a cover-up. Inconclusive fragments of DNA components from at least 2 other contributors were found on the bag. A forensic examination of Williams' flat has concluded that there was no sign of forced entry or of DNA that pointed to a third party present at the time of his death. Scotland Yard's inquiry interestingly also found no evidence of Williams' fingerprints on the padlock or the bag or the rim of the bath, which the coroner said supported her assertion of third-party involvement in the death. Metropolitan Police Deputy Assistant Commissioner Martin Hewitt said it was theoretically possible for Williams to lower himself into the bag without touching the rim of the bath. A key to the padlock was inside the bag underneath his body. Williams was buried at Yins Wen Cemetery in Valley Anglesey on the 26th of September 2010, following a private funeral service at Bethel Chapel in Holyhead, attended by his family, friends, former colleagues in the intelligence services, and also by the head of SIS himself, Sir John Sawers. Now we get into the investigation of this case. Williams' date of death was estimated to have been in the early hours of the 16th of August, 1 week before he was found. Soon after the investigation started, the heads of the Secret Intelligence Service and Metropolitan Police met to discuss how the police would handle the investigation in light of the top-secret nature of Williams' work and who would lead the investigation. Williams had recently qualified for operational deployment and had worked with the US National Security Agency and FBI agents. The US State Department asked that no details of Williams' work should emerge at the inquest. The Foreign Secretary, William Hague, signed a public interest immunity certificate authorizing the withholding from the inquest of details of Williams' work and US joint operations. After launching an investigation, Coroner Fiona Wilcox said that there were no injuries on his body and no signs that he'd been involved in a struggle. His body was also free of alcohol and common recreational drugs. The Metropolitan Police considered his death suspicious and unexplained. The FBI also conducted their own investigation into the case. In December of 2010, police released further details stating that Williams had occasionally spent between 30 minutes and an hour on bondage websites, but added there was no evidence that he was obsessed with bondage and no other pornography was found. The other interesting and very odd and weird aspect was that Williams' wardrobe included £25,000 worth of high-end women's clothing, which has never really been explained why the clothing was there and what it was used for. The lady of the annex flat he had rented in Cheltenham for 10 years said she and her husband had once found him 3 years before his death shouting for help with his hands tied to his bedposts. He said he was seeing if he could get free. They cut him free believing it was sexual rather than escapology, meaning that he tied himself up and then tried to untie himself, but unfortunately got caught in a very compromising position. A lot of people that are into bondage, especially if they don't have someone to participate with them, they will tie themselves up into what's known as self-bondage and they'll tie themselves up. Normally they'll do it in a way where they can actually get themselves free. Otherwise, as in this case, it becomes very embarrassing if you are all tied up and you're dressed up and someone then has to untie you, which is obviously what happened in this case. An expert brought in to examine the bag in which Williams' body was found concluded that Williams could not have locked it. A police spokesperson stated that, quote, if he was alive, he got into it voluntarily, or if not, he was unconscious and placed in the bag. The heating in Williams' apartment was found to be turned on. It has been suggested that elevated temperatures inside the apartment would have sped up the decomposition of Williams' body. Subsequently, the police released an e-fit photo of two people they were interested in seeking who were seen to enter the communal entrance of his home in June or July of 2010. Now we get into the coroner's inquest. Anthony O'Toole, the lawyer for the family, said at the coroner's inquest in March of 2012 that a second person was either present when Williams died or someone broke in afterwards and stole items. There was no forensic evidence, however, to support this view. No sign of forced entry could be found, but it was also noted that the door and locks had been removed by the time police experts had become involved. Now, DNA found on Williams' hand turned out to be contamination from one of the forensic scientists, and the police determined that a Mediterranean couple they had been seeking had nothing to do with the inquiry at all. LGC, the forensic company, apologized that the error had inflicted such pain on the family caused by the incorrect data entry of a numerical code. Evidence at the inquest also showed that it would have been virtually impossible for Williams to have locked himself in the bag. Two experts were unable to lock themselves in a similar bag despite making 400 attempts to do so, although one stated that there was a small chance Williams had managed the feat. Pathologist Richard Shepherd stated it was more likely that Williams was alive when he got into the bag due to the difficulty of arranging a corpse in the position Williams' body was found in. Another pathologist stated that Williams could have been overcome by, and I'm going to butcher this name, hypercapnia, elevated carbon dioxide levels, after only 2 or 3 minutes in the bag. There were no gloves found in the bag and no fingerprints on either the padlock nor indeed the bag. Williams' family said they believed that they suspected this person was a member of some agency specializing in the dark arts of the secret services, end quote. Wet work is a CIA word for assassinations. Fiona Wilcox, the coroner, said that she would follow the evidence wherever it led. Fiona Wilcox was also the coroner for the death of William Broschmidt, who was an auditor at Deutsche Bank at the time the bank was underwriting the Danske Bank / Estonia Russian money laundering operation. Journalist Duncan Campbell reported that the inquest evidence indicated Williams was one of a team of intelligence officers sent to penetrate US and UK hacking networks. He had attended the 2010 Black Hat briefings and DEF CON conferences. He had started with SIS in London in spring of 2009, and after taking a number of training courses, started on active operational work. A few months before his death, he asked to return to GCHQ as he disliked the rat race, flash car competitions, and post-work drinking culture at SIS, and as a keen cyclist and walker wanted to go back to the countryside and was due to return in September. Now we come to the inquest's verdict. The coroner found in a narrative verdict that Williams' death was unnatural and likely to have been criminally mediated. The coroner was satisfied that on the balance of probabilities that Gareath was killed unlawfully. There was insufficient evidence to give a verdict of unlawful killing, however. The coroner concluded that another party placed the bag containing Williams into the bath and on the balance of probabilities locked the bag. The coroner said that Williams was probably alive when he was put in the bag and that he probably died shortly afterwards from CO2 poisoning or from a short-acting poison. No fingerprints were found around the bath nor the bag. The coroner was critical of SIS for failing to report Williams missing for 7 days, which caused extra anguish and suffering for his family and led to the loss of forensic evidence. The coroner rejected suicide, interest in bondage or cross-dressing or autoerotic activity, meaning autoerotic asphyxiation, being involved in Williams' death. She said his visits to bondage websites were only occurred intermittently and were not of a frequency to indicate an active interest. The coroner condemned leaks about cross-dressing as a possible attempt at media manipulation. Mind you, I can understand why they would do that, because if you got a guy who's living alone, found dead under mysterious circumstances, who has an interest in bondage and also has £26,000 of unexplained women's high-end clothing in his closet, and he's a man that lives alone, one kind of has to put that together if there's something real weird going on here. Mind you, one of the things that, and I have touched on this, I think it was in the GEC Marconi episode I did, what intelligence agencies will normally do to compromise an agent or someone who is working in the intelligence field is they will set them up in a sexual compromised position that then ruins their reputation, and cross-dressing is one way to do that, especially if the victim is a male. So the fact that there was £26,000 of high-end women's clothing that was in the closet, that's not really been explained what it was doing there, and it was high-end, and of course we don't really know what type of garments they were. I can kind of see how people could kind of make a connection between Gareth Williams being part of, these intelligence agencies, dying under mysterious circumstances, which are certainly suspicious, and I do not believe was done by himself, and the fact that there is £26,000 of women's clothing, and he was also interested in bondage. I can see where the connection was made that he might have been a bit kinky, but again, we don't know for sure. And the only person that can tell us is Gareth Williams himself, and he's dead. So it's very difficult to kind of tell whether he really was involved in that, or whether it was a setup, or whether there's an innocent explanation. But I mean, £26,000 of clothing, of high-end women's clothing, to a bachelor guy that's living by himself is really weird in and of itself. Because what is a guy who supposedly works in the intelligence community doing with £26,000 of high-end women's clothing? Something just feels really off about that, and I can't help but think that there's a reason that the clothing is there, but what it is, I don't know. But it's definitely just one of the many unanswered questions about the death of Gareth Williams that I don't think we'll ever get an answer to. The coroner was highly critical of the Metropolitan Police's Counter-Terrorism Command, SO15, who failed to tell the senior investigating officer before the inquest began of the existence of 9 memory sticks and other property in Williams' SIS office. SO15 failed to take formal statements when interviewing SIS officers. The coroner said the possible involvement of SIS staff in the death was a legitimate line of inquiry for the police. Now we come to the Metropolitan Police investigation. The finding by the coroner prompted a re-investigation by the Metropolitan Police lasting a further 12 months, which officers said had been allowed unprecedented access to serving MI6 staff following strong criticism at the inquest of the spying agency's actions following the death of Mr. Williams. Metropolitan Police Deputy Assistant Commissioner Martin Hewitt announced that despite a re-examination of all evidence in the investigation of new leads, no definitive answers had been obtained as to the cause of Williams' death, and the most probable scenario was that he had died alone in his flat in Pimlico, central London, as a result of accidentally locking himself inside the bag, which I don't really know how he came to that conclusion, but okay. We now come to 2015 developments. In September and October 2015, Boris Karpichkov, sorry if I get that name wrong, a former KGB agent who defected from Russia and who now lives in Britain, stated during interviews that sources in Russia had claimed that the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, also known as the SVR, was responsible for Williams' murder. According to Karpichkov, the SVR tried and failed to blackmail Williams into becoming a double agent. In response to the SVR's attempts, Williams claimed that he knew the identity of a Russian spy inside the GCHQ. Karpichkov claimed that Williams' threat meant that the SVR then had no alternative but to exterminate him to protect their agent inside GCHQ. End quote. Regarding the cause of death, Karpichkov claimed that the SVR killed Williams by an untraceable poison introduced in his ear. End quote. The 2015 BBC Two television series London Spy was loosely based on the Williams case. The miniseries stars Ben Whishaw as Danny, who was accused of murder after his partner MI6 spy Alex is found dead inside a locked trunk. Now we come to the 2024 review of the case. The Metropolitan Police conducted a further evidence review in 2024, which followed on from a 2021 independent forensic report passed to the police in November of 2023. There were no new findings of DNA or that a third party was present at the time of Williams' death. So did Williams kill himself? Or did someone else have a hand in his murder? Well, we may never really know for sure, and we may never really also know why exactly he was killed. Those questions remain unanswered, and most likely forever will. With that, this case remains open, but with many unanswered questions that still remain unanswered. Please rate the show and let me know what you guys think about this and the many other cases I've covered. You can follow me on all major social media platforms, YouTube, BitChute, Dailymotion. I'm also on Twitter and Instagram, links are all down below in the description. If you have a case you'd like me to have a look at or cover, don't hesitate to send me a message. I'm your host, and this has been the Unanswered Questions Podcast. Until next time. Next on Unanswered Questions. John Mitchell Barnett, born February 23rd of 1962 and died March 9th of 2024, was an American whistleblower who was known for his substantiated safety and quality reports to the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, about Boeing's production of the Boeing 787 Dreamliner and death, which occurred amidst a lawsuit he brought against Boeing.